Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast right here on the Sports Betting channel. We now call the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and it's sponsored by gamblersworld.com. And like every Thursday afternoon, I'm joined by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. Today, we're going to be talking Major League Baseball. Doug, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ross. And just with baseball, we're getting getting to the Memorial Day weekend, which I guess is considered, it's like things can change, but you start to see the patterns start to emerge. You have a lot of numbers, everybody's pretty much by the weekend of play in the 50s in terms of games. So we see some stuff. Now, a lot of things can change between now and then. We've seen teams go on tremendous runs, et cetera, et cetera. But, some of the things have emerged, and, I was going to talk about that with you as well, everything's actually good. And, we're just about done with hockey, it seems, and pretty close to basketball too, NBA basketball.
Yeah. The Florida Panthers, how about that? 4-game sweep of Carolina, all 4 games decided by 1 goal, 2 of which went overtime. I love what they said last night. One of John Muckler's quotes is when John Muckler was the general manager of the Buffalo Sabres, they beat the Montreal Canadiens. They swept them in 4 games in one of the playoff series when he was there. And 3 of the games went overtime, and the other game was decided by 1 goal. And Muckler came up with the saying, well, that was the closest sweep I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
But it's sort of correlation there between that and Florida and Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what's his name? Brindamore what basically said, he goes, how do you put it? It really wasn't a sweep. It's like,
yeah,
it was, I mean, they're not going to there's no asterisks in the record book, I think, when it says 4-0.
Yeah, I think what he's implying is we both.
Oh, I know what he's implying, but it's just, I mean, trying to soften the blow for everybody.
Try to tell people that 20 years from now, we're looking into the archives. Well, it really wasn't a sweep. Well, it says 4-0 here, but it really wasn't a sweep.
I watched the video.
One goal. Yeah, all 4 games are decided by. Let me tell you something. I'll take a bet right now that anyway. We'll let it go at that.
Yeah. The one thing though, I will say about the Florida Panthers, Ross.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I'll use the word I hate them and envious at the same time. And I think you're going to know why when I start to go this direction. What's their record in overtime games this year? In the playoffs.
In the playoffs. Well, they were 2-1 in this series. I know they won Game 7 in Boston in overtime. I'm pretty sure they won another game in overtime in that series.
Actually they're 6-0 in overtime this year.
Wow.
And 8-0 going back to 2021. So if I have a sour taste in my mouth, about the Florida Panthers, that's exactly why. From that standpoint.
So in other words, you faded Florida on at least.
No. I went against them 1 game. Honestly, these games were so close. I honestly didn't do a whole lot, I did totals. From that standpoint. So yeah, that one didn't do a lot. Just I don't know, just didn't have a great vibe from it. Sure. Carolina got exposed. Although we in fact talked about it at the beginning of the series to where it hadn't hurt them on the scoring side.
Yeah.
Well, it finally did.
It caught up to them. Yeah, it normally does. Again, you could overcome losses like that in the short term. But when it usually kicks in is long term is when you start missing those people, because the people who stepped up for you aren't the type of guys that are going to show the consistency of some of your star players do, specifically so on your top 2 lines. So, I got mixed emotions there. I always liked Sam Reinhart. It's killing me now that I'm going to see Sam Reinhart, Brandon Montour, and Jack Eichel all in the Stanley Cup Finals. Somehow those 3 guys were on the Buffalo Sabres along with Evander Kane, Ryan O'Reilly. All these guys were on the Sabres, and they weren't even close to making the playoffs. So what's that tell you? The coaching at that time left a lot to be desired because there's no way you can amass that type of talent. Just those 4 guys alone, you should be able to at least contend for a playoff spot. Now they did this year, but none of them were there. By the way, Buffalo fell one point behind Florida, and that's killing me even more. 1 point behind Florida for the final playoff spot. And here's Florida.
If Chicago doesn't beat the Penguins, okay, or I mean lose to the Penguins,
right?
If Chicago doesn't beat the Penguins, Florida doesn't get in.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? To think
when you look back at it now, when you think of that, I mean that's crazy. All right, now I have another question for you.
Sure.
All right, so there's a lot of conjecture now, all right, about this, and I have my opinion, but I'll get yours first. There are people that are saying that it is it is not a bad wager to take Boston plus, it was 210. I see it's up to plus 230 now, but to take Boston at odds of better than 200 to win the series against Miami. Your thoughts?
I don't know how you equate good value to plus 230, not to win just one game, but 3 in a row. It's never been done before. No team in the NBA has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. I guess I'm trying to figure out a way where you could bet Boston at 210 and still hedge on Miami. And you may be able to do that because they're plus 210. If you bet 100 on Miami, 50 on Miami throughout the course of the rest of the series, you'll make money. I don't know, Doug. I know I like Boston tonight. And I know I'm on an island because everybody seems to think, well, they're up down 3-1 or they're laying 8, and Miami just had one bad game and they're 4-0 off a loss in the playoffs. I don't know. I just, to me, you're putting out a line of -8. You got to anticipate that the majority of money is going to come in on Miami, and it has. Right. So I just, and the line's hardly moved, Doug. I don't know. I mean, again, I know you probably got to play on this game, so I don't want to back.
I do not even play on the side.
Okay. All right. So just your general thoughts as to where this line is tonight in this Boston-Miami game 5. Again, we're recording on Thursday, the 25th. And we're going to be giving you 2 games on Friday, the 26th in Major League Baseball. But right now, I'm asking Doug about tonight's game, which may have already been played by the time you view this video. But in any event, Doug, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a poor bet to be honest with you. To start with, I mean, like you said, I mean, all the facts are there, and everybody says, well, if they win game 5, they'll for sure win game 7. So all they have to do is win game 6. Well, the well is a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, to get that, because this has come up it's come up 149 times before. Yeah. So from that standpoint, the
odds are against you, right?
And yeah, the odds are against you, and decidedly so.
Right. And then plus whatever you said, Doug, plus 230, all of a sudden isn't a great betting value when you think of it in those regards.
Right. And so the other aspect of that too. Now, I mean, I think it's to Boston's advantage that Gabe Vincent, obviously not playing. I would think in part that Miami wants to be cautious with the situation in case there is a game 6. They'd rather have him ready to go. So that does make sense. Now, of course, you would still like to close out the series, but you don't want him to re-injure his ankle by chance if you would happen to lose too, and maybe lose him for the rest of the series, because he's been a valuable, he's averaging 17.5 points per game. So that's a big deal for this team. I think the one thing that I look for tonight, and I think this is this is the thing I'll be watching for, is Boston finally made a good defensive change in the second half of the game in game 4. They came out and they really guarded the 3 hard. Okay. And so with that in mind, I think it had an impact on Miami shooting, even though Miami probably couldn't keep shooting as hot as they were. And it also had an impact on their dribble penetration. So I'm going to trust that Eric Spoelstra is smart enough. They're going to come up with some offense. They're going to run some screens, okay, maybe some weak side screens off dribble penetration, setting the pick at the top, and have cutters coming to the basket, and especially to get Bam going, okay, in the paint. So I think that's how the possibility that Miami is a bigger factor in the game. I don't, like I say, I really have no opinion on the game in terms of the side. So if you're on Boston, or if anybody's on Boston, that's fine. I'm just curious to see, this is all about adjustments, right?
Right.
We
Yeah.
hear that all
Yeah.
the time, and that's what it's about. And so we'll see what happens. Okay.
Yeah.
From that
Yeah.
standpoint.
I mean, again, I think they got away from the pick and roll with Adebayo and Butler in the last game. And that was very successful for him on many fronts. Either Butler taking it to the hole, or Adebayo rolling to the basket and getting a nice feed from Butler for an easy 2, or Butler slashing and taking it right to the hole, getting fouled, scoring, or kicking it out for a wide open 3. And I don't know. I mean, I've watched Miami now the whole playoffs, and I don't know a team in the NBA that, in my recent memory, that moves the ball as well as they do offensively. Once you start chasing them, you're not going to catch them. Meaning, when they start rotating that ball around the horn, they just find the open man and they make the extra pass, and they've been hitting with a high degree of efficiency from 3, where that's really Boston's game. And up until the last game, Boston couldn't put the ball in the ocean from the 3-point line. So it's intriguing. We'll see what happens tonight, Doug. But in any event, baseball is going on, and it's in full flight. And you mentioned Memorial Day, and I remember as a kid, and it's still fresh in my mind now, that it seems like once Memorial Day runs around, gets here, it's officially Major League Baseball's time to shine, because we're down to the NBA playoff or NBA finals. We're down to the Stanley Cup finals and Major League Baseball. And soon it's just going to be Major League Baseball, unless you're a WNBA guy like my buddy Doug, or a CFL guy like my buddy Doug, or whatever
USFL.
Whatever spring league is being created as we speak, that will be beginning in another month. But any event.
All right, I gotta quit. We don't have to go along on this one. So the thing I was gonna bring up was, okay, do you see a team, okay, or teams either having to climb, okay, let's just say in the next month, or do you see somebody falling backward? And then when I looked at it, and I looked at all the various numbers and stuff like that, I actually found that to be a very hard question to answer, because what it seems to be, now this is my opinion, it seems to be we have a fairly short number of elite teams. We have some horrific teams, okay, in baseball, and we have an awful lot of teams that are just slightly above and slightly below average. And it's just hard to pinpoint, let's just say, those ones that are in the middle, where they're going to go. Because whether it be pitching injuries, whether it be the feeble amount of offense we're seeing from some of these teams, I find it very difficult to even answer the question that I'm willing to bring up.
Yeah, and it is a difficult answer to give you at this particular juncture. I will go out on a limb and say Oakland will not finish the season 200 or below, where they are now, 10-40. And I think their win percentage will be higher than 200. How's that, Doug? I'm really going out on a limb. Huh?
That's a good one. Let me write here. I got my pen. I'm going to write that one down.
That's an absolute lock. Anyway, I mean, the AL Central is a division that I'm wondering, is anybody going to step to the forefront? And you look at the rosters in that division, and you got to think that Minnesota at some point pulls a trigger to bring in more offense. And pulls a trigger on a trade, I should say, Doug, to bring in more offense. Now, I don't know who they're going to get to improve that offense, but I do know their starting pitching is good enough to win that division right now. Now, whether they can hit good enough is another story. Detroit's starting to come on, but they're still the Tigers. Kansas City is Kansas City. They're going to be a last place club. They can't hit their way out of a paper bag. They can't pitch. They don't do anything well. Okay. Who am I missing in that division?
Cleveland and the White Sox.
Cleveland and the White Sox. Cleveland, again, I don't think they're going to go out and make a splash in the trade. As a matter of fact, I'll be covering them. You'll be covering them today.
Yes.
So I don't want to steal on your thunder, but I think part of that equation is you look at where Cleveland is now compared to how they started the year. And they're just in a tailspin of epic proportions right now. So, and then also the Chicago White Sox, all of a sudden they woke up. The White Sox started 7-21, Doug, and since that time they're playing pretty. I think they're 12-5 since that time. So I got to think that Minnesota will win that division, especially if they make a trade to do something with their offense. In terms of any other team, I'm surprised. I'm surprised the Yankees are playing as well as they are right now, in terms of just being 9 games over 500, because they've been missing Giancarlo Stanton. The bottom of their order, Doug, is inept. Garrett Cole's a great starting pitcher. The relievers have done a nice job, but I just don't think they have enough offense. They strike out way too much, and their 2 power hitters lead the pack in that regard. And I really like the Baltimore Orioles. I think they're there to stay. I think in the other division, St. Louis is starting to come on, but I think it's a fraud. I just don't think that I think they'll have their good spells, but I don't think they'll continue winning at the rate they have been recently to get themselves in the conversation anyway. And the NL Central is another division. I mean, Milwaukee, you think that they're the top dog, and they show signs of they're not so special kind of thing. Yeah. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but it wasn't an easy one to come up with a good answer for you, Doug.
Yeah, the even though I don't like their overall roster, the Angels are playing better. I mean, if they can get the bullpen sorted out and these rookies that they have, okay, at shortstop and center field, or I should say, Manaik, I mean, these guys are helping. Yeah. Okay, and they're having some big at bats. I have no idea if it's going to last, but there's a little something there, to at least get excited about. I'm disappointed in Seattle because I thought Seattle for sure was going to be an 88, 89.
I think that's a team I missed. I'm sorry, Doug. I just interject. I think that's one of the teams I missed that I think will come on in the second half.
Yeah, they should. I just don't know, with the losing, they don't have anybody to fill Robbie Ray's spot. And not that Robbie Ray pitched well last year, and I don't think he'll ever be what he was when he won the Cy Young. Nonetheless, I mean, that's just, it's, maybe they do, I don't know, but that's that. And if you go by the numbers, in theory, the Cubs should be a team, and I'm not promoting the Cubs here because the Cubs they're the number 1 run differential team in their division at +24, but yet they're 4 games under 500. So if they get their bullpen figured out, okay, in terms of how to win close games, that can change for them. But I wouldn't put my money on it.
No,
put it that way.
Absolutely not. So what do we miss? The AL East we talked about. Tampa Bay.
Well, AL East is loaded. In fact, I'm going to go see the Boston Red Sox tomorrow night. As a matter of fact, they're here in town for a rare time, and so fascinated to see them tomorrow.
I'm sure you'll see a couple fights in the stands because there always is in Boston away games. Because Boston, look, I love Boston. I lived there for 2 years, but people like to drink, man. I mean. My vivid recollection of going to Fenway Park for the first time was back in 2010, and had great seats, me and my wife, and I never saw so many beautiful women staggering up the steps, 3-fisted with beers, so Boston fans like to drink, and they don't mind the occasional altercation. So just be careful, my friend.
Now, as opposed to New Yorkers, though, come on, Ross.
We're Western New York.
I'm talking to Yankee fans.
Well, that's metropolitan New York. That's another country. That's
okay.
6 hours away. There's a huge difference, dog. I've had this talk with you before. You have to listen, my friend. You listen most of the time, but somehow I'm not getting to you there. People from Western New York are totally different than people from metropolitan New York.
Oh yeah, I'm not debating that.
A
No, no,
whole
no, no.
different
I'm not.
world,
No,
you know.
no, no.
And
I'm
there's
just saying.
nothing.
No,
And
you're
look, I love everybody in New York. You know what I mean? I love
right.
metropolitan New York, but it's not for me. It's hustle bustle. It's dog eat dog. It's competitive. When you just walk to the store, who can beat? Can you walk faster than the next guy to get in line quicker at the
Right.
grocery store? You know, that kind of thing. So anyway, we're getting way off track here. Let's talk some baseball. All
Hey,
right.
all right, I can do that. Let's
All
talk
right.
about the St. Louis Cardinals playing at the Cleveland Guardians, and they now St. Louis today. They had gone on a nice 11-4 spurt, and then they went to the Southern Ohio to play the Reds, and they only came away 2-2. They won today 2-1. Today being Thursday, they won 2-1 to get a split on the series, but they still remain 6 games below 500. So not exactly kind of a dull series, I thought, from St. Louis from that standpoint. But and speaking of dull, let's talk about Cleveland. Okay, I'm of the opinion, Ross, the way they're playing right now offensively, they
Yeah.
should maybe go back to either being the Indians or the Tribe, because this Guardians thing is not working at all for
It's
them.
guarding them
Okay.
from scoring, Doug.
It's just I don't know what it is, but it's not working. So as we do this video, they are the worst team in Major League Baseball in scoring, 3.4 runs per game. That's right, folks, less than the Oakland Athletics in terms of offense. So they've lost 7 of their last 9. In their last 3, in the series against the White Sox, 6 runs scored. Okay, so here we go. Now, Cleveland has a chance at least to be competitive in this interleague game. And in fact, they're a favorite because they're using Shane Bieber. Now, they're using Tanner Beebe, I believe it is. I could be wrong on that. Then last time I forget. But he was supposed to pitch, but they gave him an extra day of rest. The young pitcher, it still worked out. It's on because of the day off. Bieber's on his regular rest. He comes in 3.08 ERA. His record is 3-3, but his team has lost 7 of his 10 starts. Why? Because they have averaged 2.7 runs per game in his 10 starts. Now, Cardinals going to counter with Matthew Liberatore. Now, Liberatore, 1 start, one other appearance, 3.0 ERA, not much to really go by. Command is a problem with him so far, and this is in his brief career, which dates back to last year. 18 strikeouts, 11 walks in just over 20 innings. Okay, so not great. But Cleveland comes in, Ross, to me, a little bit surprisingly, a favorite of around 120, right in that area. And I'm not on board. Guardians against left-handed pitchers, 6-12 with a batting average under 200. Okay, that's not good. Cardinals rested a number of their players on Thursday. Okay, that's probably why they only won 2-1, and so they just eked it out. But in their last 8 games, they're averaging over 6 runs per game. St. Louis comes in 9-2 against right-hander starters, and they have a 4-game road winning streak in interleague play. So, Ross, to me, this team's a live dog. I'll take St. Louis Cardinals plus 110, right around in there, but certainly with plus odds to take down Cleveland on Friday night.
Very good. So Doug Upstone likes the St. Louis Cardinals plus 110 at Progressive Field in Cleveland against the punchless Cleveland Guardians. They need to go back to the Indians, Doug says, because they can't score as the Guardians. And St. Louis, after getting off to a 10-24 start to the year with today's win, they're now 13-5 in the last 18. Cleveland has lost 5 of 6. 7 of 9, has scored 3 runs or less in 7 of their last 9 games. This is a Cleveland team that started 9-6, and now they're 12-22 since, Doug. So the only thing that Cleveland's got going for them is they'll be playing with a day off, and St. Louis won't be. So that's it, but that's not enough for me to buck what Doug just said, and I'm going to agree with Mr. Upstone, and I'm going to take the St. Louis Cardinals, baby, as a money line underdog. All right, I'm going to look at the Chicago White Sox and the Detroit Tigers, another one of those AL Central matchups that we just discussed that division. Joey Wentz on the hill for the Detroit Tigers. Wentz have been very shaky. 9 starts, 7.45 ERA, 163 WHIP. Numbers don't lie, liars don't figure. Joey Wentz is a lousy pitcher right now. Matter of fact, he's been even worse than that over his last 4 starts with an 8.82 ERA. an enormous 2.02 whip. And he's also, in those 4 starts, allowed 6 home runs and 15 and 2/3 innings pitched. That's not very good, folks. That's a lot of home runs in that short amount of time. This will be his first career start against the White Sox, so I have nothing to report in that regard. Lance Lynn, not having a great year, 6.28 ERA in 10 starts, but he's showing signs of snapping out of it. His last 2 starts have been pretty good. 13 innings pitched, 3 earned runs allowed, 2.08 ERA, 1.00 whip in those 2 starts. And the Chicago bullpen has been tremendous over the last 7 games. A 1.25 ERA and 0.74 whip. The White Sox have won 5 of their last 6, 7 of their last 9. They're allowing just 1.6 runs per game over their last 7. I like the Chicago White Sox here. I think that we're going to see another fine performance from Lance Lynn in this spot. I think Joey Wentz gets blown up again. I think the Chicago White Sox help us a lot by shutting Detroit down when it comes to their turns. And I like the Chicago White Sox here, minus 130, Doug. Now, check your lines, folks, because I got 130 at Bet Online. You might have to lay 140 or so, and that's okay, too. But I like the Chicago White Sox, minus 130 at Bet Online over the Detroit Tigers. And Doug Upstone likes the St. Louis Cardinals, plus 110. So there you have it, folks. And Doug, tell the folks a little bit about, by the way, me and Doug went 2-0 on Monday. I forgot to mention that. So we're going to go 2-0 again today, folks. Foolish if you bet against us. Foolish if you don't do anything at all with our picks. Anyway, Doug, tell the folks what you got coming up.
It was a big weekend, of course. We have lots of sports action, even though we may not have some NBA, and we're likely not to have some hockey from that standpoint. We'll know tonight, okay, specifically of that. But there's a ton of Major League Baseball, and so with that, there's going to be some great opportunities to find some different plays. I'm actually looking forward to see what's going to be available. And did some scouting on some lines. And actually, another thing I'm looking at had some good success lately on betting series props. Okay, so that's been something that has gone well. The Major League Baseball picks continue to be honestly up and down. Okay, have a couple good days, have a couple not so good days. So I've been working like crazy to try and get this turned around, get something going in. And honestly, like I've said, I think this is the time of year to make it happen. And in the past, I certainly have done that. And that's exactly what I'm looking to do going forward. And, and like I said, the prop thing is really interesting. And I know we've kind of dabbled on this a little bit, but, there is definite interest in that. And I have seen that from a personal standpoint on sales as well. And so, it's just something to keep in mind. And, WNBA has some action this weekend, and I know not everybody does that, but more people bet the WNBA than most people realize. Okay, so if you want to get in the action, same thing with Russ and I've talked about. You don't have to know a lot about it. That's what you're paying us to do. Okay, and you should expect results, and we're looking to deliver for you.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to watch it. I love people when they say, "Well, I don't know enough about the WNBA." Well, you're paying me because I do know enough about it. Right? Simple deduction. Anyway, sales 101. Anyway, Doug, I wish you nothing but the best of luck over the weekend. I'm sure you'll do great. You're back and forth in Major League Baseball right now, but anybody who's followed Doug over the years knows he's one of the finest Major League Baseball handicappers there is. His awards and his accolades speak volumes in terms of that statement. And I think you have that all listed at your website or your website.
Yes, I do. Yeah, like in 2021, when I was the top handicapper at Dachshund Baseball. So that type of thing. So absolutely.
So him going back and forth right now, we all do that on occasion, and we all start seasons like that on occasion. But it's how you finish, where you end up at the end of the year is what counts. So I would put my money on Doug the rest of the year, folks. So if you have not subscribed to Doug Upstone and give him some time. Give him a month subscription. I don't know. They have 30 days at Docs?
They have 30 days. They have 1 week. They have 30 days. Yep. Have all of those types of things. Absolutely, Ross.
I consider myself a pretty smart guy. And if I didn't do this for a living, I would definitely invest at least 30 days into Doug, and especially in baseball coming up. I think you'll make a ton of money over the summer with Doug Upstone at DocSports.com.
Appreciate that.
Also, Well, it's well-deserved, and it's true. You can find me at rbwins.com. Having a fantastic NBA playoffs, folks. 35-22 since the NBA postseason began. That's 61%. I've been number one at sportsmemo.com in the NBA postseason since the first couple days, actually, of the postseason, and that's continued throughout. Hit a little bit of a tailspin, losing 3 in a row at one point last week. Boy, oh boy, I had that Denver and Lakers game over 224. I had 131 at the half. Doug had finished 224 right on the nose. That felt like a loss. Anyway, and again, 18-9 with my last 27 in the NBA. Also, my NBA sides, money line and point spread picks, 30-14 since the postseason began. That's good for 68%. And lastly, my NBA 10-star top plays, which are my highest rated picks, 32-16, 67% with my last 48 NBA 10-star top plays. In baseball yesterday, it's starting to come on. Hit Cincinnati plus 140 yesterday, went 1-1, but still made a profit because I had the Reds over the Cardinals. Reds blew them out 10-4, I believe, and as a sizable underdog. So a lot of good things happening at rbwins.com. Also at docsports.com. Find Doug Upstone, his page. And again, folks, I'm highly suggesting, invest 30 days in Doug. And if you don't make money, call me up and I'll give you a week of my service absolutely free. How's that sound? All right. That's how confident I am in Doug. And that's how much pressure I like putting on him. And I know he can handle it because see them shoulders? They're broad. Anyway, until the next time, don't forget, folks, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. You'll see that WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Just click on that. A subscribe button comes up. Subscribe. And then when you're in your YouTube settings, make sure you hit the notification bell, and you'll be alerted immediately upon any of our Winner's Circle Sports Betting podcasts being published right here on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel. And to steal a phrase from Jesse, see that like button? Smash it. Anyway, until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, I'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Sean Higgs and Jesse Shule. We'll be talking Major League Baseball again in the morning. Until the next time, folks, take care and God bless.